say dreams with this classic that was written and co-performed by Art Blakey, drummer, and Bobby Timmons, pianist, all the way back. And he revived this with his own vocal style. It is from his 2007 album, The Dreamer. This is Leid Stories. I'm Utrice Leid, and I wanted to take a sidestep for a minute from the coronavirus and how many people have died, how many people are sick. It's really overwhelming, and it threatens to numb your mind and spirit. We need to deal with this this report that we get every day, practically, in a different way. We need to understand these are people, not numbers. And there is a whole system responsible for all these people dying, suffering, and we need to know why. I wondered in all of this whether you managed to observe one person in particular who is suffering greatly, but not for the reasons that you think. That person is suffering because there's been miscalculation after miscalculation. And it is not the kind of miscalculation you can dismiss. It is right there in your face. And what's worse is it's for the world to see. But even as the world sees it, the American world in particular, it's as if they can't see it. It's a really interesting thing. It's denial, it's refusal to admit what is happening, and refusal to put the blame where it belongs. Can you figure out who that might be? This denial. Could you tell me whether you've read the signs yet? Which raises a whole new set of questions. I'm not going to give you any more hints. I'm just going to ask. I'm going to ask you to see if you have detected yet what the big signs have been and why they're not being addressed. And yet they are at front and center of what we are experiencing as a nation. I'll wait for a little minute to hear what you have to say. 888-874-4888. What am I talking about? Why am I talking about something that seems so disconnected from our collective reality right now? That there's something happening. It's right before our eyes. And yet, we refuse to see it. And it explains a whole panorama of issues that we've been dealing with and the consequences of those issues. And as a nation, we absolutely refuse to deal with it. We keep looking for the answer someplace else. We keep contriving answers, actually. The answer must be in the issues themselves. So that's what we've been getting. Reports on the issues themselves. The issues are disconnected from anything else. Don't you find that odd? I'll give you one more minute to see if you have figured it out. But this is a tremendous tragedy for all of us and for this country, that we cannot see it, let alone are we prepared or committed to do anything about it. It's staring us right in the face. But we are denying its existence. We keep saying the problem is somewhere else. And we refuse to look at the enormous impact that far supersedes the impact of the coronavirus itself. Can you figure it out? Willie for Brooklyn, you're on the air.
Good afternoon, my dear beloved.
Hello, Willie.
Good afternoon, and
good afternoon.
Family. So, in my judgment, I'm not as articulate as Harvey and Henry and these wonderful people, but for me, it's very simple, Utrice. It's how it's affecting African people and the death from that more than anybody else.
Okay, well, that's part of it, but that's not it. I hate to tell you. It's bigger than that, much bigger than that. But I understand your analysis and how much it has impacted on you. Thank you so much for calling. St. Clair from Brooklyn, what is this thing I'm talking about?
I didn't hear what the former speaker said, but my guess would be in 3 words, a new world order.
Nope, that's not it.
That's not it.
But you're close. No, but it's involved, but that's not it. Thank you for contributing. Liz from New Jersey, maybe you have the answer.
Yes, I think it's the evisceration of the Constitution of the United States. It seems like there's a coup, and it's been murdered in the process.
Okay. You're right on point as regards a portion of it, but that's not it. I'm sorry to say, but thank you so much. Very well thought out. Thank you. What I'm talking about is the obvious failure, deterioration, falling apart, inability to lead of the President of the United States. He has shown in this particular circumstance he cannot and will not lead. He doesn't know what is required of a leader. He doesn't have the capacity to to lead. Because to lead, you have to have vision. He doesn't have it. If you look at the president, you see even physical manifestations of his own internal recognition and admission, I would say, that he is falling and has fallen far short of what a president of this country ought to be and ought to do. He can't stand up to the job. He doesn't have it. He's been impersonating a president, and outside of the strict political world before he became president, he has all been about grandstanding. All the pizzazz, all the glitz and glitter, no substance. And he has been fortunate so far in governing, if you want to call it that. His governing style is actually delegation. Yeah, Fred will do that. Mary will do that. I'm announcing that Fred will do that and Mary will do that. That's the end of leadership. Now comes a real problem. And you have nothing. You don't have a grand idea. You don't have a substantive idea. You don't have direction to give. You are totally without tools to solve a problem, a national problem, and everybody agrees it is severe. You have no comprehension of the problem, let alone taking on this problem and leading the nation through it. You have nothing. What's worse is everybody's jumping in front of the other one to take the bullets, to spare you very close examination, to give you credit that you are not due, to excuse your ineptness. And the fact is, the president is falling apart under this pressure. He can't take it. Look at his mannerisms, even the way he walks and he stands and he gestures, his tone. He's morose, incapable of giving hope, because he has now reached a stage of hopelessness himself. And people around him are doing all kinds of acrobatics to prevent close examination of the president's actions. The president himself is conscious of the fact that he doesn't have it. Being able to bark orders at other people, being able to tell the public, well, this is what we're going to do, which of course isn't his own original idea, it never is one thing. But how many of these utterances from Donald Trump actually started with Donald Trump? Let's take the most recent initiative of the stimulus package. Do you think that came from Trump? Do you believe this originated in his head? No. He doesn't have a clue how to solve a complex problem like this. He's never had to do it. He's always been able to delegate. And even so, you have more misses than hits in delegating because they're not your original idea. They're not your concepts. And you're a big PR guy. You ought to know how this works. This is your time of glory. This is your time to show the people why it made sense, why it was logical to elect you, because you are what you call yourself. What did you call yourself? The stable genius. You're the stable genius. And nothing in your stable genius head sent out an alarm to yourself that recommending that people take disinfectant to get rid of a virus. Your genius didn't stop you from saying something that stupid and dangerous, did it? And you walk away from the mess, leaving a loyal handful to clean up after you. To not tell the public just how unstable you are. Just how difficult it is to get through to you. And even with that, you have tremendous attitude. You're a genius of the stable kind. Yes. That's what the big revelation is. Everybody, including the Democrats, including the people who should be criticizing him and holding him to account, they're not saying anything. They're interested in knowing what is the matter with Kim Jong-un of North Korea. How come he is not seen regularly now? Where is he missing? Has he died? There's a lot of concern about something in somebody else's country. What's happening here? To your leader. And are you taking notes that specifically at a time of great turmoil, your leader has nothing to offer from his original stable genius mind? We are all going along with somebody else's idea, which he has rubber stamped because he had none of his own. But look at the way things are going. Your stable idea, did it produce this idea to compensate people? to get them through a hard time? No, that's not in your nature. That's not in your nature. So if we were to ask the question, what initiative specifically was initiated by Donald Trump addressing these very, very troubling times that we're in? Eyes will start rolling, people start looking around the room, people will do everything possible to avoid answering the question. You see that he's falling apart. You have to be a stable genius to see that. He opens his mouth and garbage comes out. And then his loyalists run to defend that garbage, run to surround him, and even while he goes right through all their years of experience and all of their credentials, they have to put it on the line to save his behind. But the leader is falling or has fallen apart. No question about it. And he's not smart enough. This is the thing. When you are a character like that, you just come into office, you look not for cronies. You look for people who are the best in their game, because you will have to lean on them to clean up your act. You'll have to lean on them for good ideas. You will have to lean on them for a defense. But instead, most of the people that you have in your administration are just like you. They've been posing all these years. They've been flying by the seat of their pants, and they were allowed to do that because they had connections. Take, for example, your son-in-law, your daughter. What training, experience, expertise do they have? You don't care, and neither do they. But they are senior advisors to this administration. They get a nice paycheck, and they have access to all kinds of ways to make more money. And you don't object to that at all. This is corruption in our faces. Doesn't bother you a bit, because this is, in fact, the way you have lived your so-called professional life. You always have to have an angle. You always have to find a way to pass money under the table to make it look like everything is fine and you're flying straight. But you're not. Everybody knows you're not. Your administration is full of corrupt people, just like you. No principles, no sense of duty to country first, no interest in the welfare of others. The only interest they have is attached to their bank accounts. What kind of interest are we getting? How much richer are we getting? How many deals are we cutting? How could we cover up our tracks? How could we get away with looting this country and still making it look like we have something special to offer? They have nothing special to offer. Your son-in-law's father was convicted of fraud. Your daughter has not one single credential for her position. But that's minor stuff. In this coronavirus giveaway, I am willing, because I haven't looked closely at the figures, I am willing to bet you that it is riddled with gifts to people who are loyal to Trump and who might even share some of their windfalls with Trump somehow. That's right. It's not going to the cab driver. It's not going to the bus driver. Sure, you throw some money so you cover your tracks. And the record would show that ordinary people were taken care of. You throw them a bit of money. Person with a small business, you give them some money to defray costs while they recoup and rebuild, hopefully. Most of them will not be able to. But the lion's share of all this money is going to people who are connected. That's the way you do business, Mr. Trump. That's the way you and your circle and your cohorts, that's the way you guys do business. We'll give them some chump change. But nothing compared to what your friends on the boards of directors of hospitals or major business, just like the loans, the small business loans. You think they went to small businesses? Was it intended that it would go to small businesses to help them rebuild and see if they could make a go of it after this travesty that you call help? The vast majority of that money is going to your pals who don't need it. People who head up multi-million-dollar corporations. They're the ones getting the money. The vast majority of the money at that. You're still operating with your cruel, criminal mindset. You stable genius, you. And you trot out your acolytes to sing your praises and your glory. My God, it's happening in front of our eyes, people, and with devastating consequences. Not a single major media outlet has connected us to this central question. Is this president on the up and up? They will glancingly say, well, he's unusual. But then again, he described himself as a stable genius, which tells you the extent of his instability. This is very serious. For every one person receiving graft money, one company receiving graft money, you know how many hundreds of people could be helped? But it wasn't for them in the first place, was it? You're a scam artist, and your whole top tier of advisors, you're all scam artists. We'll make it look like something, but we're doing something else. And we'll tell you how much we're doing in your behalf. We will give you updates now. We'll send you a letter with a phone call to follow up and track your gift from us. It is, of course, a re-election year. And it fits so nicely. It's the biggest subsidy yet to a political campaign. Imagine an incumbent president doling out trillions. His administration is having a field day with people's tax dollars. Just let's give this to this project. Let's give that couple of billions to another project. Let's adopt another project over here that will cost another couple of billions. Nobody's asking. Everybody is very content and pleased at this humanitarian gesture. But they have their hands in the till, and their hands are the only hands in the till. So they could do whatever they want and suffer no consequences. Nobody is going to say, wait, Mr. President, all these trillions and billions and millions of dollars that you're spending, where exactly are they coming from? And how are they to be replenished and repaid? What is the timetable here? What do you project will be the result of these heavy investments, which of course are just a gamble? It's just that he's saying, we need to do this. This is a logical thing to do. That's when you play with other people's money. There are no guidelines yet, except, you should be able to demonstrate that you truly were forced out of business, and we'll help you get back. But the money that Jose Rivera gets, or the money that Fred Andrews gets, is nothing compared to what other people get and designed to get with the cooperation of the highest levels of this administration. The corruption reeks all the way up to the top. And we can't see it. We're not hearing about it. We don't know this. The media is not interested in this right now. And you can see how the pressure is making him crack. Because he can't be in the middle orchestrating these moves, he doesn't know how to make these moves. He has to depend on his circle of fraudsters to advise him on how to achieve these tactics, and call it a program of correction. No, you can't fool me. And you look at the president and you see the full weight of reality that is hitting him, that has multidimensional parts to it. One, he knows to himself that he has been playing games in selling himself as a seasoned businessman, as a man who knows how to handle money, as a man who is used to power. All of that is not true. He has been able to rent power. He has been able to buy influence. And he has been able to select people who would play these roles, but make him look good. Of course, for a price. They are the ones running the country, not Donald Trump. Number two, he has lied so much in his life, he still thinks it's a piece of cake. I could lie to anybody about anything, and they'll believe it. I'll make them believe it. It worked. He got elected. And so far in his tenure as President of the United States, it's worked pretty well. People take him seriously. He's a real president with a real brain that could function independently. But look at him. You see, he is coming to terms, or has come to terms, with the reality that he is not up to this job. It is much bigger than him. He can't control his minions anymore. They are off on their own assignment to make themselves rich. And he probably doesn't know half of what they're doing. But that's how criminals function, you know. I'm your pal, I got your back. And right after making a statement like that, they're off to doing something completely different from what they're telling you. But I think, whether the media tell us or not, the fact is, this is where we are. It is coming to a head. The whole thing of it has to come to a head. And Trump will have to be out there all by himself under some pretty bright lights. You notice he can't speak about any initiative, anything in detail. And if he does, he's reading it right out of a book that was prepared for him, pieces of paper or a brief. On his own, he has no idea about the details. He leaves that to his minions, and they perform accordingly. They make him sound like he knows what he's doing. It's a formula that has worked a lot, worked very effectively. But he has hit a rock. And you will see him, you will physically see him deteriorating, mentally see him deteriorating. He can't carry this for long. much longer. He would start sounding like a nut, as in that disinfectant statement. Then he lies to cover it up. He'll be slipping. He can't remember what his last lie was. He knows he is widely disrespected among the world's leaders. They think he's a joke. They think he's a clown. They think he is a pack of lies. He is a distortion. He is an insult to the idea of statesmanship. And that is what we need to pay attention to in all of this. Watch how Trump deteriorates as a leader, deteriorates further as a leader. There's nothing there. And what's there is not his own. He is being governed. He is being led. He is not the leader. Don't forget that. I'll take this break and we come back to some of your comments and questions right after this. You're listening to Leid Stories on PRN.FM. I'm Utrice Leid. And now your questions and comments about that little diatribe I just offered there. What do you think? Jim from New Jersey, you're on the air.
Yeah, I'm looking at the big picture always, and I haven't listened to you in a while, and last time I said there's a bigger picture, and Trump is just a puppet. The last president was Kennedy. He got killed. Then he was talking about secret societies. This whole thing here is a big coup to ruin the economy and to vaccinate and all that stuff.
Well, what leads you to that conclusion?
You're the president that you, and almost every other day complain about. He's just a puppet. So I understand your hate for the guy, but I mean, he's just a puppet.
I don't hate him. Let's be clear. I do not hate Donald Trump at all. I understand him and what he represents. That's a whole different thing. I don't hate him. He's following exactly I agree with you there. He is following the road he thinks he needs to follow, or he has been told to follow. But I don't hate him at all.
And his mental decline, I mean, I don't know what the story is on that. I mean, it's scary, but there's a whole bunch. The so-called cabal is behind the whole thing, and we got to get to terms with that. Now, what I don't like about your show, I said that before, you don't like to be criticized, and
I love criticism because it gives me a chance to argue. I normally don't do.
There's a bigger problem here, and we all got to stick together, and we got to forget about black and white and all that stuff. We got to stick together. There's something really, really bad coming. I think we're maybe in biblical times actually at the precipice of the fight between good and evil, because this whole club there, the cabal, that it really it does exist. And behind that, everybody knows the vaccinations and all that stuff. We are going towards a Hunger Games society, and if the people don't wake up, we're going to be there. And there's too many sheep.
Well, thank you very much for starting us off in the commentary section. Thank you. Gwen, you're on the air from New York.
Hi, Yatrice.
Hi.
I really liked I loved your commentary today. Very, very wonderful about a bad subject. But I also wanted to add to this because I have been waiting like everyone else for this so-called stimulus check. I also registered for unemployment over 7 weeks ago. I have not gotten either, but what's interesting to me about this is that nobody in my family, who are all registered Democrats, who are all very vocal, who all go on Facebook, none of them have gotten it either, except for my one sister who makes a lot of money, and although she didn't get a lot, she got $40, she still got it. So I put it on Facebook the other night, and I wanted to know if anybody had gotten this check yet or their unemployment. And there was an old friend that we knew from our family in Pennsylvania who is a born-again Christian, very religious, and a real Trump supporter. And she said, I got my stimulus check right away, I got my unemployment, and I got my furlough right away. Then I spoke to a friend of mine who is a very nice girl. She's Jewish, but she's very involved in New York circles, very high up circles, in fundraising for Israel. And she also got her unemployment check and she got her stimulus check right away. I don't even think she waited 2 weeks to get both of them. So I started thinking about this, about who is getting the checks. And you have to remember that Donald Trump recalled all those checks because he personally wanted to put his name on those checks, and then sent them out after they had been recalled so that people could see that the king was giving us a gift. And I wouldn't put it past this guy to be giving checks to the people that he knows will vote for him, or at least they're open to voting for him. The other thing I just saw, which was very interesting, is that millions of masks are being delivered to the VA hospital, which I'm happy that they are, but no one else is getting the enormity that the VA hospitals are. And to me, it's election time, and it's just another vehicle to get Trump elected by showing that he's friends to the veterans of the United States. So I think that what you said about the higher-up people getting their payoffs is 100% true. What it never occurred to me, though, that, somebody could actually have written some kind of software for computers seeing who was a Democrat and who was a Republican. And there's an awful lot on your IRS return when you send that in. There's a lot of information about you that can be gleaned by sophisticated hardware, or even people, to see which way you go. I mean, frankly, it probably wouldn't matter if Trump gave me a stimulus check of all the complaining I've done, but I would be curious to see, and I have put it on Facebook. I've asked people on my page, please let me know if you got it, and please let me know what affiliation you're with. Are you a Republican or are you a Democrat? Because I also wouldn't put that past Donald Trump. And it just occurred to me the other night that this guy is such a skank that I think he would do something that low.
Thank you. Thanks for your comment, Gwen. Moki from Connecticut, are you still there?
Greetings.
Oh, hello.
I salute you, Yatrice, and I hope you're in fine health.
Thank you. Same to you.
All I can do is concur mostly with what you and everyone else has said so far, but I'd like to call them by name, these people, the president and his cabinet. They're racists. They're fascists. They're genocidal eugenicists. And he's allowing people with these qualities to run the whole show. I believe they're satanic as well. It's clear to me.
You're painting with a broad brush here, Moki.
Well, I'll get more specific, Yatrice. Doctors Fauci and Bricks, so-called Dr. Tedros, the head of the WHO, Gates, Musk. These people are running the whole show without any legislative redress. Pelosi, Schumer, and McConnell, and the entire legislative body are complicit. I can make a comparison between the president and Hitler. if you would allow me to.
Nah, that takes us off course. Stick with the subject.
You know, and as far as Hitler looted Eastern and Western Europe, he didn't have the apparatus that Trump has. The digital banking apparatus, the congressional. So it's not just an attack on the poor, as with any regime like Hitler's. The intelligentsia and the artists are also being targeted. That's all I have to say.
All right. Well, thank you for calling in. Marcus from Wisconsin, you have a short time, I'm sorry to say, but you will be our last caller.
Thank you, Ms. Leid. I enjoyed it. It wasn't a diatribe. You laid out your case very smartly. The last caller is correct. It is fascism, and it's not painting with a broad brush. Fascism has a meaning, and the current administrations in my lifetime, going back to Nixon, fit it. Here's the way I feel about the kind of case you made about Trump, pointing out the corruption of either party or the government or how it interacts with corporate finance and exercise of power. When I was very small, I stopped watching network television 40 years ago, but when I was very small, there was a commercial on television about a storekeeper named Mr. Whittle who would squeeze toilet paper because it was so irresistibly soft. And then other shoppers in the store, even though Mr. Whipple was constantly saying, don't squeeze the toilet paper, they would have to admonish him. Hey, look, Mr. Whipple is squeezing the toilet paper. And that's what these discussions about corruption in our political system have sounded like all my adult life. It's like somebody standing up in front of the television and saying, Mr. Whipple said not to squeeze the toilet paper, but he's doing it himself. This is a discussion about water being wet. Of course they're corrupt. All of them are. They have to by necessity. Any state is going to be in the interests of the elites that form it, not the people. The secret to the American form of fascism is the whole time you tell people they're free. Well, if having a choice between 70 different kinds of laundry detergent is freedom, then you have that. But in terms of having control over your society, you have none. Control over the economy, input in the political system, you have none. People have to grow up and stop bemoaning the fact that water is wet and begin the discussions about how to deal with it. That's the issue, the only issue. All of media has one story. There is no elephant in the room. The elephant is, look, half the population at least supports Trump. They think what he's doing is great. What was the response from the so-called political opposition, the Democrats? They've been on vacation for a month. None of this stuff that he's doing even elicits a response from them. If people can't see through that, then they deserve to be the slaves they're going to be. That's all there is to it.
A very dire warning, but I think very legitimate. Thank you so much for contributing today, Marcus. And that brings us to the end of our program today. You know, isn't it odd that these kinds of things are not on our minds as we go about our daily lives? But if we were to pause long enough and deconstruct the reality that we're living, we say to ourselves, how did I miss that? How could I have missed that? Because by then, the problem isn't theoretical, it's real, and it's impacting your life directly. Let's not get to that point of waiting until, the stone drops let's analyze things every day, things that are so important and that people are getting away with and making us feel, well, you're doing the right thing, and thank you so much for considering me and my situation. I really appreciate it. You see, it's not worth appreciation at all. It is a con, and a heartless one at that, and with your money. This is America, after all. Thank you for listening and contributing today. We'll come back to each other tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Every evening, Friday morning,